But news of their detention spread. When Krystyna heard about it, she moved fast. She came up with a plan which meant risking her life. She watched where the Gestapo were holding Komertz. Then she approached an officer and confessed she was a British spy. But she said she was the niece of the famous British general Montgomery. And unless they released Komertz and his colleagues, the Germans would be lynched when the Allied troops arrived.
And the fellow said, I would let him out for 3 million francs plus a guarantee that I'm not prosecuted. She said, fine. They shook hands on it. She went back to her wireless operator and turned up next day with the 3 million francs, which had been parachuted into her by Algiers, who said to themselves she wouldn't ask for it if she didn't need it. That sort of character. Sheer brass.
It worked. The prisoners were freed.
She saved Francis Komertz from execution. He was going to be shot the following morning.
He remained profoundly grateful to Krystyna for the rest of his life. 5 years of successful opposition against the Nazis well behind their lines earned her a George Medal and the Croix de Guerre. The war ended, and Krystyna, like many SOE agents, found herself eventually back in a London that was celebrating victory. But the celebrations didn't last long, as the country faced up to the ravages war had brought. Soon Krystyna was out of a job, as SOE was wound up.
It happened to lots of people. Most people, indeed, who were in SOE were anxious to get out, get back to business, or get back to politics, or whatever.
For most agents, the rapid winding up of SOE after the war was absolutely fine. They went back to what they were doing before the war. But for a few, adjusting to a more humdrum life after the excitements and dangers of spying wasn't easy.
They found civilian life boring, as indeed it was by comparison with what they'd been up to.
Some couldn't take it. A few drank themselves to death. Whiskey wasn't the answer for Krystyna, but she found adapting to civilian life in a strange country particularly hard. Spying, after all, was all she had ever done. She could hardly go back to Poland now that it was controlled by the communists.
Perhaps one of the most tragic things about Krystyna was when the war ended, the British government said to her, well, thanks very much for what you've done. They gave her a month's pay, and they said, you're on your own.
The next few years saw Krystyna try, and mostly fail, to adapt to life outside. She worked in Harrods. She waited tables. Then she took a job as an ocean liner stewardess. But in 1952, her life took a turn for the better. She was back in touch with the love of her life, Andrew Kowersky. Then came the final tragedy. She had always had a talent for attracting men who were quite desperate and needy, her stray dogs. One such stray dog was a young man she met on ship, who she befriended mainly because she felt sorry for him. Now, though, Krystyna's ability to keep herself safe, which had served her so well in the war, deserted her. This stray dog wasn't just needy, he was mentally ill. He wanted her all for himself. When she told him she was leaving to join Andrew in Belgium, he asked to see her. When she refused, he was waiting at her hotel. If he couldn't have her, nobody could. She died immediately. She was just 37 years old.
I think that the tragic thing is you live absolutely on the edge, a high-risk life in your 20s, and 10, 15 years down the line, here you are in early middle age, and you don't expect that some crazy fellow is going to murder you.
In the Catholic cemetery of St Mary's in Kensal Green in West London, Christine Granville's modest grave is now a little overgrown and forgotten. But in 1952, she was buried here in a ceremony attended by 200 people, including representatives from the British, French, and Polish governments. Present too were the two men that meant most to her in life: Francis Cammertz, whose life she had saved, and Andrew Kowarski, the only man she had really loved. Andrew never recovered from Christine's death. When he died, his ashes were placed here in her grave.
I think as a woman agent, Christine is outstanding. She is hugely courageous, but I still feel that at the end of her career she was treated very, very shabbily by the government. And I think in 1945 there was very much a feeling, it's over, we want to get on with ordinary life, we don't want to kind of be involved with all this aftermath of the war.
Today, however, Christine is remembered and honoured. She was one of the most heroic and successful SOE agents of the war, serving the British state longer than any other female agent. Her bravery, brazenness and intelligence represented everything that SOE sought in their agents. She was Winston Churchill's favourite spy.